is, I believe, let's see, lecture 2 for WPF. So typically in wholesale fashion, we usually cover a lot of this stuff. Hold on, I'm hearing some reverb on the microphone.
Should note.
Can everyone make sure they're muted if they're on? All right, so typically what, again, one more time. Everyone mute your devices. All right, so today what we're going to do is we're going to go through our code review. Basically what that means is we're going to kind of sit back and look at people's code and kind of work under the kind of examination of what's going on the back end. Does anyone have any questions about this as a topic and as a learning tool? Did it get resolved? The echo? Oh, Marche. So basically what's going on here is I'm going to be doing what's called a code review. So basically what a code review is, it is us going through the process of examining people's code, and anyone who wants to volunteer their work, I'll help to kind of critique it. We go through the process of kind of troubleshooting it and examining it so that way we can kind of have a more broad understanding of what's going on under the hood. And it gives you guys a really good example of some best practices, and it kind of allows you to model what it is that I do when I program. Again, and we're going to look at kind of last week's assignments. I have one student's work who's volunteered very nicely to kind of let me use their specific work. So I think we'll start with this. So Antonio, first of all, I'd like to say thank you for letting us look at your work. In specific, so if we look here, I believe this is the conditionals assignment. Comment if you have any commentary on it, or if you'd like to make comments, just send it to me via IM. I'm hearing a lot of echo again. Does somebody please mute all your mics? All right, so what's going on here is this is a thermostat control. So we have, in this case, an initial temperature, which is set to 50. So we basically initialize a variable here, and we're going to set that to a specific value, in this case 50. Now, in accordance with the rubric, if we take a look at that, what we have is this should be used as best practices as a prompt. But I guess this is a base, so we can either this is a prompt or as a set value, but I prefer to do it as a prompt. So I'm going to comment out his code right here so he can have it around, and we're just going to introduce this as a new prompt. And in this case, what is it we're trying to ask? So what is the current value? Or I guess we could just say current temperature. Pardon my spelling, I do not claim to be the ultimate in English. And then don't forget our semicolon. So in this case, what are we doing here? We're saying we can walk through the initial, we're looking for the initial temperature, and then we're looking for the desired temperature. So again, we're going to be doing this as numerics. So that is a piece of information that we need. But in order to ensure that we have the right kind of data coming back, we need to basically perform a parse int, which is a command, and I assume that everyone here knows what this is. Please IM me if you do or don't, so that way I know that we have a continuous dialogue. So following that, we're going to perform the same thing since we're talking about a second integer. Again, and we're taking in multiple integer values. Now, if we start to kind of walk through this process, what do we have? We have basically a multi-stage, multiple possible condition forms. So what is that? What am I trying to say here? Well, basically, what are all the possible options that we can have? So we can have an instance in which we have a desired temperature, which is less than the temperature given. We can also have a condition in which the temperature is greater than the desired temperature, but then we also have another additional condition which is not being represented here, and that is what are we going to do under the conditions in which the two values are equal. I think he doesn't necessarily need to enumerate it out. I think it's a good example for us to do it in this particular case, just because, again, I want to kind of go through this process and make sure everything becomes very clear to everyone. So in this case, we would do an else if, just like we would do normally, in which case we would say the desired temperature is going to be greater than the temperature, and then we would perform these actions. Now, what do we have here that we could also do? And that is the conditions under which we could say things like else, i.e. the two temperatures are equal. We may console log if changes need to be made. Does everyone here kind of follow along with this process? Do you understand why it is that I went through this to enumerate out the third condition? Is anyone still on the line? Thank you, Brian. All right. So I spoke with a few students through my online students here about some of the stuff that I would be happy to go over with them. And unfortunately, I do not remember who that was. Are any of those people on the line? Okay, I'll take that as a no. All right. Is there anyone here who has got any additional code that they would like to have reviewed to look at? I will be happy to accept any of the code that you guys resubmit for those who are in my class. For any of the changes that we make and any of the things we work on, I'll be happy to accept those and kind of take that into account with any negative points that you guys accrue. So there is kind of an incentive towards you ponying up if anyone here is interested. Shoot me an IM, and I'll give you guys about a minute or two here. All right, well, while we wait, let's perform a few more functions and see if we can write out some more code along these lines. So we're going to start from scratch. I have a note from Diego. You sure can. Is it up on GitHub? Oh, does anyone have any questions about the code changes that I made? And where is it? Okay, so you guys do all understand then kind of what it is I did and why it is that I did it, and that idea of there being kind of, we need to enumerate out all possible options. Thanks, Brian. Yes, I will be happy to do that. If you were the, I don't remember. I remember it was one gentleman and one person. And which assignment was it we were talking about? I think it was the expression stuff. Correct. Which portion? Again, dude, sorry. I agree a lot of stuff. So, do you remember the comment? That'll jog my memory. Okay, will do. I have to pause the screen for a moment so I can go into my email. Excellent. All right. Thanks, Brian.
Yeah.
And of course. Of course, now's the time everything goes wrong. I'm getting a lot of static or a lot of voiceover, so I don't know if somebody's unmuted their stuff. Here we go. Perfect. I know the last one inevitably. All right. So first off, Brian, thank you very much for allowing us to kind of walk through this. All right. So let's start here at line 10. So what line 10 basically is doing is it's taking this drum-based price and it is adding into that an array. Now this array has only one element in it. So basically what that means is that it doesn't have basically doesn't have a second element in it. It's basically equivalent of taking this value right here and just kind of adding it into a variable. You're not using any of the power of the array itself. So what I'm going to do real fast is right here, we're going to do a quick console log and take a look at what's in the actual array. Well, we're going to have to throw it into a quick script tag just so that way it is available. What is it? All right, all I've done is throw it into a JavaScript tag within the scope of the HTML document, just so that way it's a little quicker and a little cleaner for us to deal with. This is not really a best practice, but again, for the purposes of this lecture, I'm trying to get things done quickly. Open in browser. All right, so 10, 10, 10, view. Of course, you open Safari. Okay, so in this value, what we have here is that we have basically a 0th position of the array. Everyone following along with this idea? We have basically one value located in the array itself. So let's go take a look at an alternate way to do the same thing. We can do the same thing, we can call it out. All right, so again, we have the same value. Now, so what is the power of the array? The power of the array is basically the ability to pull out each and every component of the price itself into, to be able to have them all available to us and still simultaneously be able to walk through each element of the array and then still perform kind of a summation series of actions. So, is everyone following along? Again, I'm not hearing any commentary, so this is, okay, good, perfect. All right, so let's see, what are we trying to do here? We're trying to add the values of the specific locations. Oh, actually, so let's try this. So what happens if we do this? What we did here is we basically added this element to the array. My critique of Brian's code basically said that if there were multiple elements within the array, and those elements may be something that are not necessarily integers or numerics in this case, there may end up causing problems with the calculations. So let's see how this works. It's 2 over, in this case, let's see, 10, 10, 10. And here we are, it cost you NaN. So we're ending up with a not a number value. And the reason we're ending up with a not a number value is because JavaScript doesn't really understand how to handle the string component of the second element of the array. again, you can see why that might cause a problem. So what we might do instead is we might, let's say, each of these values are itself, each one of these has a specific uniqueness or something about it that makes it worthy of knowing independently, right? Because he enumerated out each one of these guys, right? So again, Brian, can you comment for us a little bit about the kind of business rules and the impact of what it is this actually means? Are you able to get on the mic?
Yes.
Tell us a little
Can you hear me?
about, okay. Yeah, like totally hear you, man.
All right. The prices that you're seeing there are the actual bass drum heads you have to buy for a marching bass drum, and those are the 5 different bass drum sizes that are a typical bass drum line.
Okay, cool. So these are the required number of. So each one of these values is important to have independent of all the other values, right?
Correct.
Okay, so good. So then let's take a look at that. So each should be, again, pardon my spelling. Whatever, it's fine. That's good enough. So the same thing here we can do for this quad drum price, right? Because again, we want to make sure that we have all of those elements available to us. And lastly, again, for this other price. So now, what are we going to do here? Well, the reality is that have you guys started looking at the loops section yet? Brian's a no. Amanda, have you guys gotten? Okay. Diego's going to know. Amanda, I think you're one of the other ones here. Do you have a no? Yes. Is that yes you have? Okay, good. Okay. Excellent. So just so we're clear, what a loop does is it basically walks through and steps on each and every position that it is asked to step on until it's finished. In other words, if you ask it to step through position from 0 to 10, it's going to go 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. If you ask it to step every 2, it will step every other one from then. Now, there are 2 ways we can do this. I'll show you both of them pretty quickly. So in one case, what we're going to do is we're going to create a new variable. And in fact, we're going to take this array up here, and we're going to turn this into a new variable. And I'll show you why in just a second. So this variable we're going to use is going to be called our bass drum array pricing. Okay, and it's just the same exact thing that we had before. Now what we're going to do is we know that there are a certain number of drums that we have at each price, right? Right, Brian? In other words, a marching band has to have 5 of these.
Yeah, that's correct.
Is there any instance in which a marching band might have to have 2 of one and 3 of the other and 5 of one, or what some strange combination there is?
Not really. I mean, you could have the instance of having only 4 bass drums or only 3, but 5 bass drums are the standard.
Okay, so there are instances in which case you may have different versions. That's all that matters. Whether it's more or less, we can totally deal with it as long as we understand that there's a possibility for differences. So if that's a possibility, we might need to do something that would allow us to then say, well, this is so we have a variable bass drum price, and in this case, it's going to be our generally preferred version. And our preferred version is going to take the value at, which one? The bass drum array pricing. We're going to take the first value, and we're going to add that to, and I'm just going to copy this whole section right here and paste it, so that way my lazy programmer butt can just kind of shortchange any of the extra typing I don't need to do. And we're just going to walk through each step in the array, right? So you see here, the first value is that, the second value is this one, the third value is that one, the fourth value is this, and the fifth value is that. So in our problem here, our first value, because we start at 0, is going to be this, and that's going to be equivalent. This, let me just highlight it in just a section. I'm interested in that right there on line 13 is equivalent to this, because it is the 0th position, and that's the 0th positioned version. So that guy right there is equal to that. Everyone follow along?
Yes.
Perfect. So then we're going to take it, continuing on. We're going to do this value here at 2, the value at 3, and then finally we're going to do the value at 4. So now what we've done here is now we have both retained all the elements of the array, and we have simultaneously added each of those elements into a single value, which we can then reference down here in line 26. I assume everyone seems to be going okay with this plan? I'm going to keep asking. Okay, good. I'm going to keep asking because I want to make sure that I don't leave anybody behind. So then we can do exactly the same process we just performed with our quad drum pricing. So I'm going to create a new variable, and this is going to be our quad. Actually, we're just going to paste that in, and we're going to do this as our quad array, drum array, and we call it pricing. So that way we can keep it independent. And in this case, we also have 5. So we're going to, this is going to be equal to this guy right here at position 0. And then we're going to add in the same exact way we just did. So basically what we're doing here is each of these array elements, is what they're called, have a specific value at a specific position. And we're just going to kind of add them up. Now I can continue to kind of enumerate this out, but let me show you guys another version of what it is that we're doing, and that's with a loop. So I'm going to erase this last version. Actually, I'm just going to comment it out because I'm going to return this code to Brian so he can play with it, and then if he wants to share it after the assignments are graded and whatnot, you guys are more than welcome to it if he allows you to have it. So what I'm going to do here is the idea of a loop is basically, again, something that steps through each and every item. Well, now if we look at our bass drum pricing here, and I'm going to line these up so it makes it very, very clear what needs to happen or what's going on here. So if we look at what's going on, what do we see? We see that everything is exactly identical, except this number right here changes every single time, right? And it just increments by 1. In other words, it starts 0, and the next time it's 1, the next time it's 2, and the next time it's 3, and the next time it's 4. So we have loops that will do exactly that. It will say, I'm going to start at position 0, and then I'm going to step to position 1, and then 2, and then 3, and then 4. So I'm going to take this, and I'm just going to write a quick, it's a type of loop, it's called a for loop. Okay, and a for loop is initialized. You basically have 3 elements of a for loop. You have the initialization component, which is the first piece. So in this case, we're just going to call it I. It's a common standard. It's from basically old programming and math. And then what we're going to do is we use a semicolon to separate from the next piece. And this next piece is called the condition. And the condition is basically just like a conditional, which I believe you guys have already started looking at. And that is the piece that basically says, hey, look, I'm going to keep doing this until this condition is met or until something happens. So in this case, we're going to say we would like, for as long as I is less than, how many do we have? It's going to be less than 5. Because it starts at 0, and we want it to go all the way to 4. So then, what are we going to do? Well, we're going to have I equal to I plus 1. And I believe everyone here, no semicolon there, everyone here, I have to check my, go to the meeting. Okay, everyone here, I assume, understands what that little section right there does, right? It just steps through the program, variable. So the first time it fires, this loop fires, I is 0 as we've set it, and then afterwards it's going to be 1 because it's going to be equal to I plus, which is 0. It's going to be equal to I plus 1, which is then 1. So then once we do this, we have this loop structure. Then what we can do is then we create these braces. They're just like the ifs, right? You guys remember how ifs work? You have these little braces, the curly braces, they do the exact same thing, right? Everything that happens when an if happens, everything in the for loop that happens happens inside of the braces. So in this case, what we're going to do is we're going to need a variable to kind of store the quad drum information into. And in this case, it's quad drum price, same variable we had before. And we're going to set that equal to 0 to start. Again, because it's a numeric piece of information, we want to make sure that we set it equal to something, so that way it has some value. That way it doesn't accidentally try to think that it's a string. We want to make sure we're very clear with programming languages. So quad drum price is going to be equal to, and what is the array that we have, right? Well, it's the quad drum array pricing, which we knew from what we just set it equal to. And now we have this element factor, right? This thing right here. Well, what is that thing? What do we need to do for the element? Well, if we look at the array, the controlling variable that we have in the array is the I value. So what happens is this, as this iterates, I starts at 0, as we mentioned before, and then it moves to 1, 2, 3, and 4, and then it will stop. Well, in order to make this thing equal to that, we basically need to use the same variable here that we used up there. So what will happen is the first time this array will fire, it will basically say this guy right here is going to be equal to the quad drum array pricing. But the reality is we don't want to set it equal to that every time. What we really want to do is we want to set it equal to the addition of what it used to be. In other words, if it starts at 0, and then the first time we run, if we look here, it should be equal to 1295. The second time it runs, though, it should be equal to 1295 plus the 1495. The third time it runs, it should be equal to the 1295 plus the 1495 plus the third item, the 1595, and so on. I'd like an affirmation from everybody that they understand what's going on there. So can you guys send me a yes and a
Yes.
hell yeah? Thank you, Brian. All right. So what does that have to be? It means that we have to do a quad drum we have the quad drum price value. So what is the quad drum price? Oh, okay, Marcia, you don't see. Okay. So let me reiterate it this way. When we start this process, we want to add up all of these guys, right? Because there should be one of each one. Do you agree with that? Marche?
Yes.
Good, excellent. Okay, so it didn't sound like Marche, but I'm going to pretend it did. So basically what we have to do is we have to step through and add up each and every one of these guys together. So if that's the case, no problem. So again, the process is, and I'm going to write it out here a little bit so that way it's a little more clear. I will comment this out. So the first time this loop needs to fire, basically we need to add the 12.95. We need to set the variable equal to that. So we need to set equal to 12.95. And I guess I should write variable as the actual variable that we have, which is quad drum price. So plus the 0 from the old value, the initialization of that variable. The second time, what do we need to do? We need to set do the same thing. We need to set it equal to that plus the 0 plus we need to add in the 14.95 value, right? Because it's the second one here. The third time we do it, we need to set.
Hey, Joe, I got one question. I think I get it, but I just want to make sure. Can I try to explain? Because, you know,
Yeah, go for it.
someone else's code, and I think that's what's throwing me off. I heard him explain that, I think he said that for the bass drum prices, those are like the initial prices for whatever else you may need. So you need those 5 prices plus whatever you get for the quad drum prices. Am I correct?
Eventually, yes, but what we're doing right now is we are taking and just getting the kind of accumulating the value of just the quad drum prices and kind of playing with the array itself.
Okay. All right.
Do you get it now?
I'm gonna keep watching you. So far, with what you placed up there, I understand that. So I'm just gonna keep watching.
Okay, cool. So I'm gonna comment this stuff out real fast. There we go. So that will not affect it when it runs. And so what's going to happen here? So now this, let's walk through it. So this part right here, the quad drum price is initially, it's set right here. It's equal to 0. So right now, this is 0. And what we're going to do is we're going to take the price at the position of 0, which in this case is $12.95, and we're going to add it to the original price, which is 0, and then we're going to put that here. So now this should be equal to $12.95 plus 0, or $12.95. Then this code is going to run again. This guy right here is going to increment, so he's not going to be worth $12.95 anymore. He's going to be worth the second value, which is $14.95. So now this guy is worth $14.95. This guy is worth $12.95. So now what happens here is quad drum price is now equal to $14.95 plus $12.95. And I can't do the math off the top of my head. Something 90. Looks like 27.90. So yeah, don't quote me on that. So then that process kind of runs through. So following that, the third time it runs through, it's going to be the accumulation of $14.95, $12.95, and $15.95. And the next time it runs, it's going to be the accumulation of all those guys up here on line 20 up to the $16.49. And the last time it runs, it'll run all the way across, so it'll get all 5 of them in there. And again, each time it just adds the one new item plus all the old stuff. So again, so by the end of this cycle here, you can see that this is a pretty clean little piece of code. But we can actually clean this up a little bit more. And so I'm going to comment this out again, so we can have it for later. But we're going to do a simpler, I guess not simpler, a cleaner version of the same thing. Now remember, I don't know if you guys have seen the videos yet where they talk about concatenating strings. But basically this plus equals, this is just a shortcut for writing the same thing up here. So it's just a way to say add this in. Take this stuff and add it in there. So then what we're going to do here now is I'm just going to do a quick console log. Joe can spell console log. And we're going to do quad drum pricing. Okay, so now what's going to happen is now this little loop's going to run, and it's just going to set every single time and pop out the values. So let's take a quick look at it and see how it runs. So if we look down here at the bottom, let's see what, come on there. Okay, let's see what happens. So we started at $12.95 and then $27.90. Hey, I was right. And then we go to the next value, and we go to the next value, and we go to the next value. So each of these guys basically, we kind of walk through this process, again, step by step by step, until we finally end up at the end with this accumulated value. So then we can basically repeat the same thing here again, but instead of doing the loop, we're just going to do the more simplified version. And so we have the snare drum price. We're going to turn this into snare drum array, pricing, and then we're going to create our snare drum array. Snare drum price, and that's going to be equal to our snare drum array pricing at position 0 plus our snare drum array pricing at position 1. So again, now what we've done now is basically we now have the code so that we have both utilized all of our arrays, and we've kind of introduced this idea of loops. And simultaneously, now our the code down below, because we created new arrays, to handle the information, all of the code down below should still work. Who just somebody's got their mic on, and I hear a child.
Oh, sorry.
No. It's no stress, man. I just want it's just I want to make sure that we get as much out of this as possible.
Okay.
You can say hello to the child for me. That was supposed to be funny. I hope it kind of came across that way. All right. So, Mike, do you have any questions about this? And does it all? Or Brian, do you have any questions about this? And does it make enough sense?
Yes, it does. Makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, man. Happy. Okay, good. Okay, so I had Diego. Is there anybody else who has some work that they'd like to have put up? Let's see. Diego, can you, where was the assignment? Can you send me the location? Okay, cool. We'll take a look. I'm going to copy this out real quick and throw it in an email to Brian. Yeah, good. Just want to make sure. New. Here I am. Brian Turner. There we go. So. All right. So I'd like to make sure I send that out before I forget. And then, let's see, your class worksheet. So, your class worksheet, conditions worksheet, is that what it was? Conditions worksheet. Thanks for, I'm never going to get used to this Mac. Okay, do you have specific questions about this? And or no, just the feedback. Okay. Well, let's just start at the beginning, and we can kind of walk through this. I haven't done this thing in forever, so we'll just walk through everything and kind of go through this start to finish. So we have, let's see, trying to make if they're going to need to stop for gas or not. Okay, so we have miles per gallon. In this case, it's going to be equal to 30. We have a percentage of the tank, which is 0.7, so we have 70% of our tank left. We have the capacity of the tank in gallons, and so that's going to be 10. So that means that from that we can equate to the actual number of gallons, which would be the percentage times the capacity which you have. And then we have okay, the last next gas station is 200 miles. So what we're trying to do is we don't need to check to see if what we need to do is we need to calculate how far it is that we can currently travel given the number of gallons that we currently have. So that's what we need to do is we basically need to create a variable, and it's going to be called effective distance. So in this case, I guess, because I'm going to do it. So basically our effective distance is our actual gallons. So our actual gallons times what? Times the miles per gallon that we have. Right? So that should render out effectively how far away we can travel. So what we need to do is we need to know if the distance, actually we have it in here. So we need another variable here. That's going to be distance to two S's. That's good enough. Distance to gas station is 200. So in this case, again, I don't even need to do the math because the reality is, what do we know? If the effective distance, if the effective distance is greater than what? The distance to gas station. If it's greater than or equal to the distance to gas station, you can make it without stopping. Otherwise, you only have the actual number of gallons of gas, and you better stop while you can. So does that make sense? Anyone here have any questions about that? You have questions? Or does that make sense? I guess I should. Okay, thank you. Perfect. So now let's go on to the next one. So we're going to do basically the same kind of a thing here, and that is with the letter grade. So everyone here is totally familiar with the rules for getting the grades. So we're all familiar with the common American grading scale, no matter how many problems we may have with it. And so basically it is a 95 in this case is an A plus, 90, between a 95 and a 90 is an A, between a 90 and an 85 is a B, a B plus, I guess, and then so forth and so on. So in this case, everything here from the outside looks like it is working appropriately. So you're going to pass in some value. In this case, it's the student grade. And then you preset your letter grade so that we know it's the strength. And then you basically kind of walk through the rest of it. So, and let's look at does anyone have any questions about that? Everything here seems to work perfectly. Any questions?
Were we supposed to put prompts in that code, or am I off?
We can put prompts in the code if you'd like. And again, let me just throw these in there real fast just so that way we know what it is. So we're basically going to take in a prompt. So we're going to take a prompt, and this prompt is going to be what is the letter? Oh, sorry, I forgot something here. What is the percentage of the item, because I don't know if it's a test. And then we're going to put in a little extra piece of information, use whole numbers to represent percentages. All right, so then in this case it wouldn't matter because now we're still kind of passing the information in. And again, we're still going to end up with the same result. This is, again, an interactive version of the same thing. So movie ticket prices. Okay, so this is actually the best one. So this is the anomaly of the and or. So what we have here is we have a set of rules. And this one I'm basically doing from memory. So what are the conditions? I believe, and please anyone here correct me if I'm wrong. It is if the conditions are if it is between 3 and 5 p.m. or you are between 0 and 10, or between, or greater than, I guess, 55. Thank you, Diego. Okay, and I guess so between 0 and 10 is really less than or equal to 10. So less than or equal to 10. So those are the conditions under which we have a different price. So Each of these conditions are need to be kind of, let's divide them up into what they are. So it has to be between, I'm going to put some blocks around these. I'm going to put these little braces around them for each condition. So it has to be between 3 and 5 p.m. is one piece. You have to be less than 10 years old is another piece, or another piece, you have to be greater than 55. So as long as it's between those values, you are less than these values, or you're less than these values, you are less than 10 or you're older than 55, then the condition is $7, otherwise it's 12. So let's take a look at the actual code. Ticket price, I don't know what that is. Oh yeah, no, yeah, you're pre-doing that, but you're saving it not as a string, but you really should be saving it as a numeric. So let's start with that. And another semicolon. All right, so let's start with this. So if the age is 55, or the age is 10, or the time is greater than, so this is the thing that's interesting. You want it to be greater than that, less than that. So what we're doing here is we're saying that we're kind of encapsulating, just adding a little extra space here, we're kind of encapsulating this section and saying that all of that needs to be done at the same time. So it needs to be greater than 3 and less than 5. And if we want to be kind of pedantic or kind of enumerate it out completely clearly, really we can use like military time. So 1500 and 1700. Again, you don't have to do that, but I just want to make sure that I'm being giving you guys kind of additional options for how it is we address the time component. So does anyone here have any questions about this? And again, this idea of kind of separating out each piece and part of the code so that the ands and the ors are all isolated and unto themselves and scoped appropriately. Everyone kind of get that? Excellent. All right, does anyone here, anyone else have any information that they'd like me to go over, or any other questions about the stuff that we've covered this week? Anyone else want their code presented?
I did my code with this same problem. I did it completely different. Can I email it to you? This is Marche.
Marche, is it up on GitHub?
Yeah, it is up on GitHub.
Okay, I pull in every student's because I know that I will inevitably have to help students, so I just pull everybody's stuff in.
Okay.
So let me just pull it down real fast. Where is it?
I think that's the conditional worksheet in JavaScript.
Okay, perfect. All right, well, let me open with other. All right, is this you here?
I think it's at the bottom for that one.
Yep.
That was the last one.
Okay, so how old are you? That looks fine. What time would you like to see the movie? That's all good. So if the customer age is greater than 55 or the customer's age is less than 10, the ticket price is $7. Yes, that is true. If the condition price is, yeah, this is functionally the same thing. You're basically doing the same thing with a different format.
Okay.
Exactly the same thing logically. Yeah, Diego, basically other than a few syntax errors, there's one piece that you really kind of had an issue with, and let me pull yours back up real fast. That's not it. That's not it. There it is. Is this it? No, that's not it. That's it. Oh, there it is. Okay, so the last piece, the only thing you did wrong was this section right here. And again, I threw it in the military time. You did not kind of encapsulate those two pieces together. So that way, you knew that you had both conditions at the same time. So both of those two things have to be true simultaneously. So back to Marche. Yeah, everything here looks like it's going to work fine. So again, it's just a different format for structuring the same thing. And with programming, that's something that all of you guys are going to have to kind of get accustomed to. You're going to have to learn the structure, learn the theory, and learn how things work. And then you're going to basically be able to kind of encapsulate and kind of work through it all and work through other people's code all at the same time. And again, the reason I love doing code review in these lectures is, one, it gives you guys an opportunity to look at each other's code and to kind of critique each other's code and to see these little minutiae differences, right? Both of these two pieces of code should work just fine, but they look very, very, very different. But again, as long as we address them in a functional and logical manner, they should all work fundamentally the same. And I can't say either one of these approaches is any better than the other. All right, so does anyone else have any commentary, any questions, or anything else? I believe we're scheduled for an hour, so I believe we're hitting the edge now. If anyone else doesn't have anything, I'm happy to let you guys go. I will be available. I'm actually going to class right now. Oh yeah, absolutely, Brian, no problem. I'm heading to class now, but I'll be available on tomorrow probably throughout the day, off and on, and then on Sunday also. So again, people who even aren't in my class, don't hesitate to contact me. I'm usually pretty responsive. Email's the best method. If you guys have any questions at all, can you repeat my error? Yes. Anyone here who is, let me actually go over that with you privately. I think everyone else has it. And then I will let everybody else go. So does anyone else, if no one else has any questions, I thank you all very much for your time. And I will talk to you all soon. All right, I'll talk to you tomorrow, Mark. Hey, thanks, guys.